Here in China, certain numbers have powerful symbolic meanings. The number 4, for example, well, that's associated with death, whereas the number 8 is associated with prosperity. The number 9, well, that symbolizes longevity. Unless you're talking about Chinese cars, in which case the number 9 has come to represent one thing and one thing only: flagship.
That's because over the past few years, nearly every Chinese automaker has released a flagship sedan, SUV, or MPV that utilizes the number 9 in its name, an effective, if not particularly creative approach.
AITO M9, Stelato S9, Denza Z9, and N9, the list goes on and on and on. So, it's probably no surprise that when the nice people over at Lynk&Co needed to come up with a name for their new flagship SUV, they went with a 9. Meet the Lynk&Co 900.
With an official price range of $43,000 to $58,000 USD, the 900 is considerably cheaper than theoretical rivals like the Li Auto L9 or AITO M9. Our 2-liter ultra-spec test car with more or less every available option would set you back around $55,000 USD. Before you start speccing out your own 900, you should note that Geely has yet to announce any specific plans to sell this car outside of China.
I like things nice and tidy. In fact, some people have referred to me as a clean freak. I prefer the term cleanliness enthusiast. That passion for hygiene extends to cars as well, and that is why I'm so excited to introduce the sponsor for today's video, 3W Floor Mats. A good floor mat should be able to handle whatever you can throw at it, so 3W floor mats are custom designed for a snug fit that eliminates gaps and offers superior coverage from the dirts and liquids of everyday life. 3W floor mats are constructed from a high-quality TPE material, so not only are they long-lasting, they're also non-toxic and odor-free, which makes them ideal for families with infants or pets. In the very likely scenario that you get your 3W floor mat dirty, that TPE construction also means you can simply wash it off. Best of all, 3W stands behind their products with a lifetime warranty. We rely on sponsors like 3W to bring you reviews like the one you're watching right now, so be sure to click the link below and learn how you can upgrade your floor mats today.
Welcome to Wheels Boy, where we cover the newest, coolest, and wildest vehicles from the Chinese car market. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell.
The 900 represents more than just the growing group of number 9 names. It also represents the fact that China's large SUV market has absolutely caught fire over the last few years. Remember, unlike markets like the United States, where large SUVs have been longtime bestsellers, China has only recently started to turn to large SUVs as Chinese families grow in both wealth and size. As a result, they're looking for more and more 6- and 7-seat options, and this is Lynk&Co's attempt to satisfy that demand. Lynk&Co clearly took more inspiration from the smooth shapes of a Range Rover than they did the square-jawed approach of American or German SUVs when it came time to pen the 900. I have been a vocal fan of their latest design language, epitomized by things like the 2-pronged LEDs here, as well as the black post that sits underneath the exterior mirror. By making the shape smooth like this, the car feels more familiar, but yet still distinctive. A little bit like hearing somebody play one of your favorite songs on a new instrument.
The 900 takes a page out of the Zeekr playbook by adopting an LED panel on the front end that can display both text and images. Unlike Zeekr, however, the 900 has a rear display as well, though it is lower resolution than the one on the front. This being a Geely Group product, it also has an external speaker that can play recorded messages and sounds.
This actually isn't the first Lynk&Co SUV with 3 rows and a 9 in the name. That distinction belongs to the 09, which we reviewed here on the channel nearly 3 years ago exactly. That car was borderline too short to comfortably fit people in all 3 rows, but the 900, well, it's got an overall length of 5.24 meters and a wheelbase of nearly 3.2 meters, so it should have no such problems. The 900 has taken after luxury SUVs like the BMW X5 and Range Rovers by having a 2-part tailgate, as you can see. I fold this down here and have a seat. don't be nervous. This thing can hold up to 300 kilograms. Speaking of 300, this rear cargo space behind the third row is 300 liters. If you fold down the third row and fold forward the second row, you can have up to 1,070 liters. Those numbers are about 10 to 20% less than similarly sized rivals.
Well, it's supposed to have 300 to 1,070 liters, but the electrically folding third row seat on the right side was malfunctioning during filming.
Closing this up, let me show you one of the other features that's available on the 900, an electrically deploying tow hook. This thing has a maximum towing capacity of 2.5 tons.
The next stop on Wheels Boy's EV tour is our most beautiful driving route yet, because we are going to China's Sichuan province, including the amazing cities of Chengdu and Chongqing. Yes, there will be pandas, and for those of you with a real sense of adventure, we're offering you the opportunity to extend your journey all the way to Lhasa in Tibet. This event begins in mid-August, so reach out ASAP to tour@wheelsboy.cn to learn more.
The interior designers at Lynk&Co have taken what I'm starting to call the classic Geely approach, which is forgoing multiple screens in favor of one unbelievably large screen. This whopper of a display, powered by a Qualcomm Snapdragon 8295 processor, measures 30 inches and can be controlled by either the driver or the front passenger. The display is impressive enough already when dedicated to a single task, such as here where I'm looking at the map for the navigation. But it can also go into a split screen mode. For example, if I turn on a video app like this, something I can only do when the car is in park, a safety feature I really appreciate, I can start playing a video, and if I wanted to, I could then throw that video over to the passenger's side using a 3-finger swipe. In turn, the passenger could do the same gesture and throw it back to me. The fun doesn't stop there, however, because if I open the video app, and then I touch this button in the top right corner of the video, I can choose to share this content to the right side of the main screen as well as such. And if I touch that same button again, I can choose to share it to the massive 30-inch rear display. That, by the way, we're going to touch on a lot more later in the video, but let me finish talking about up here because there's another display that I can share the media to. Touch the button again. What's this? I can throw this video to the 95-inch high-definition heads-up display. This thing, which again you can only use when you're in park, is equal parts impressive, overwhelming, and arguably impractical. The sense of being cocooned in entertainment is only enhanced by the Harman Kardon surround sound audio system. The standard system has 23 speakers, including 2 mounted in the driver's headrest. But if you're an audio maximalist, you can opt for the 31 speaker system, which adds headrest mounted speakers to the front passenger seat and both second row seats. If you can somehow tear your gaze away from the siren song of that center display, you will note an interior that is in keeping with Lynk&Co's identity as a youthful brand, but not necessarily a luxurious one. There are some youthful design touches, for example, this lighting strip on the dashboard, as well as a whole lot of rose gold trim pieces, something that I am an unabashed fan of. In terms of material quality, fit, and finish, I can't find any major complaints. I mean, there's some cheap, harder plastics here on the center console, but that's something I would expect for a car at this price point with this many features. If you wanted higher-end materials, well, you can wait around for the Zeekr 9X, but that thing is going to cost considerably more than this. The second row of this highly spec'd version of the Lynk&Co 900 is absolutely packed with creature comforts. For example, you've got these awesome airline-style overhead vents that you can adjust individually. I really like to see that. You've also got deploying tables on both sides for both passengers. Folding that up, these seats are heated, ventilated, and massaging, and also have an adjustable leg rest. Both left and right-hand side seats also have a USB Type-C charging port. The one on the left-hand side, that is 27 watts. The one on the right, though, that's 60 watts. It also has another feature that is pretty much mandatory on large Chinese SUVs these days, a heated and cooled rear storage compartment. Earlier in the video, I very casually dropped the fact that this thing has a 30-inch rear entertainment screen, but let's stop down and take a moment to admire this monstrosity. Powered by a Qualcomm 8295 processor, this thing nearly matches the 32-inch drop-down projector screen of Huawei cars in terms of size, but resolves a lot of the problems that are inherent in that Huawei approach. For starters, this is an actual display, so it's brighter and clearer than any projector that you can find, especially in daylight. Yes, it's not as tall as the Huawei screen, it's actually much wider in aspect ratio, but because of that, you don't need to move the front row seats out of the way in order for it to actually open it, which is something you have to do with the Huawei screens. In fact, this thing makes it even easier because it's mounted on a track that can slide the screen forward and backwards, allowing you to avoid having it run into the first row. You can actually watch the screen adjust automatically as you adjust the angle of the front row seats. Unlike a projector screen, this is also a touch screen. However, small children and lazy adults might find it difficult to reach the screen once they've fastened their seatbelts, so there are other options for controlling it, such as gesture controls. Now, gesture controls are nice because, again, it means you don't have to reach up and touch the screen, but I found the gesture controls for this to be, well, not particularly intuitive and a little bit oversensitive, so I didn't really like to use them. The third and arguably best option is to use your phone and control it remotely. In order to do that, you hit a button over here, you pop up a QR code which you scan using China's WeChat app. Pretty much ubiquitous, this app, everybody has it and uses it. Then you can use this mini program in the app to control the screen. That was nice and easy, but I found that if I disconnected the app from the screen, for example, by turning off WeChat or turning the car on and off, I was then unable to reconnect. I had to turn my phone off and then on again in order to reconnect to the app, which was inconvenient. As I've already mentioned, this thing has a very wide aspect ratio, so when you play a video on the screen, there are large black borders on either side. But remember, this 30-inch screen is essentially the same one as the front row, and just like the front row, it can go into a split screen mode. That means that the two sides can play their own individual media at the same time. If you combine that function with the headrest mounted speakers and the optional 31 speaker sound system, that means that the left and right hand passengers can both watch and listen to their own media individually. I grew up doing long road trips up and down the eastern seaboard of the United States with my parents and 3 siblings, and I cannot begin to tell you how many arguments could have been prevented if we had a function like this instead of a single portable DVD player that we all had to share. But since Geely Group loves nothing more than spreading development costs across as many of its brands as possible, that's not even the most interesting feature you're going to find in the second row of the 900. That distinction belongs to something we first saw on the Zeekr Mix: spinning seats.
The seats can spin 90 or 180 degrees, but unlike the Mix, it's not the first row that spins around, but the second row. So you need to make sure both rear doors are open in order to have enough space to complete the operation. You also have to ensure that there are no people or items in the first or third row.
This is an undeniably cool feature, but it is a bit of a pain to use when compared to the Mix because there are a lot of conditions you have to meet, because there's an extra row, there's an overhead screen that needs to be closed, so on and so forth. It also doesn't have the sliding center console of the Mix, which was a convenient feature. There is apparently a table accessory that you can put here, which would allow you to play board games or card games with the other people in the car. As it is, all you can do is stare deeply into the eyes of the third row passenger until things get awkward. At this point, you will have noticed the fact that that row did not spin around. That's because no matter how many times I've tried, I cannot get it to do so. These small problems are building up in this car, as you may have noticed. Third row won't fold. Second row won't spin. This screen, I'm having trouble connecting the phone to it. These are small problems, but as an objective reviewer, I have to mention them. As an objective reviewer, however, I also have to mention the fact that this car is an early production or even pre-production media test car that has lived a very hard life. You would think that they'd want to give media the best possible cars in the best possible condition, but the reality is the most important thing is to get it to us early and quickly, so they give us whatever they have. This isn't necessarily reflective of the cars that are going to reach customer hands, but again, I'm not going to hide these problems from you.
Of course, just after we finished filming, the third and second row decided to behave themselves. This indicates that it was probably a software issue that could be fixed by an OTA update, which still isn't great, but at least it's not a failed motor.
Another area where Chinese manufacturers continue to push the limits is in terms of third row comfort. This thing has decent amounts of legroom and headroom. I am 1.75 meters tall, or 5 foot 9 inches, just for your reference. It also has the kind of features that I would expect on a Chinese large SUV. For example, you've got these overhead vents, though again, it's nice to have airline style individual vents. You've also got a nice, beautiful speaker here on the D pillar. On the side, you've got massaging and heating functions, as well as an individual USB charging port for both sides. You've got a storage pocket for your phone and a cup holder. I also expect these things to have adjustable seat bottoms and seat backs. But what I don't expect is it to have this level of adjustment. Look how far I can lean back in this third row. It's absolutely ridiculous. I struggle to think of a time I would need to do this, but I don't know, I guess it's pretty comfortable. Another feature I've never seen in the third row of any car is the ability to adjust the second row seats from the third row. When you hit this button, all of a sudden the controls that used to control the third row now control the second row, both rake and forward and backwards. You can also hit one button here, which will fold the second row forward, allowing you to get in and out of the car more easily. The problem here is that you can still control the second row seat from the third row, even if someone is sitting in it. Remember when I told you that that split screen function would resolve or prevent a lot of arguments between me and my siblings when I was younger? Yeah, for every one argument that that would prevent, this would create, I don't know, 10.
The Lynk&Co 900 is only available as a plug-in hybrid, with most trims featuring dual electric motors, though you can choose to pair it with either a 1.5-liter or 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder. We're talking about a combined 530 kilowatts and 1,000 newton-meters of torque for the 1.5T version, and slightly more power and torque for the 2-liter turbocharged version that we reviewed. 0 to 100 km/h times are 4.8 and 4.6 seconds, respectively.
There's also a tri-motor version that makes 650 kilowatts or nearly 900 horsepower and can hit 100 kilometers per hour in just 4.3 seconds. It can also do compass turns. If that sounds familiar, that's because that's the kind of thing that the Denza N9 and other Denza models can do. In fact, I think that particular version is designed to compete more directly with super SUVs like the Denza N9. Honestly, I think Lynk&Co is probably going to sell maybe 5 of that version because it's considerably more expensive than the already very powerful version that I'm driving right now. It's just not particularly necessary. I'm sure it's nice for them to be able to say that they make an SUV that makes nearly 900 horsepower though, so good for Lynk&Co. I know some of you will be very disappointed by the lack of pure electric powertrain on this car, but the reality is that here in China, plug-in hybrid powertrains are still very much in demand. Part of the reason for that is that they have very healthy pure electric ranges. In the case of this car, it's 185 to 220 kilometers on the WLTC cycle. That depends on whether you get the 45 kilowatt hour battery, which comes with a 1.5 liter turbo engine, or the 52.4 kilowatt hour battery, which comes with this 2-liter turbo. Either way, those are both ternary lithium chemistry.
The 900 has double wishbone front suspension and 5-link rear, with adjustable air suspension available on 3 out of 4 trim levels. That air suspension certainly provides a very comfortable ride, but it doesn't result in an SUV that hides its size from behind the wheel.
Body roll is extremely present, but the front end is responsive enough to steering inputs that it still feels reasonably maneuverable. I do lament the lack of rear steer, something I see in an increasing number of large Chinese cars, but overall, it's no more cumbersome than I would expect for such a large, family-oriented SUV. All versions of the 900 have the same suite of sensing units for their driver assistance systems. We're talking about a combination of cameras, radar, and a RoboSense LiDAR unit. However, the lower two trim levels have an Orin X chipset with 254 tops, whereas the upper spec ones, including the one we're driving now, have the latest NVIDIA Thor chip, which makes 700 tops.
Considering the fact that Geely brands have lagged behind the competition when it comes to driver assistance tech, I was impressed by the performance of the 900 in a suburban environment. Apart from a persistent fear of walls that sometimes had it sticking too far to the right side of the lane, it was easily the most confidence-inspiring system from any Geely brand yet.
I think it's a low-down dirty shame that the 900 had so many problems during its time with us, because I genuinely believe that it has earned that number 9, its designation as a flagship SUV for the Lynk&Co brand. It's got the type of styling, features, and driving experience that should appeal to a lot of buyers. And indeed, they have received over 30,000 orders since this car debuted back in March. Let's hope that the problems we experienced either don't exist in later production cars or can be fixed via OTA upgrades ASAP. All right, thank you so much for watching today's video. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell.